Hi, I feel kind of led to talk about my experience doing ayahuasca. I was traveling around South America and um, went to the jungle of Peru and did like a 4-day ceremony. And yeah, I don't really know where to start. I guess I could start at, the first ceremony. And I have to say that I had a very good impression of the place. Like it was a permaculture sort of estate, and it was all like indigenous people, and that's sort of how they provided for themselves and their families. So, um, yeah, I felt like it was a right or a good thing to do overall, and I was searching for answers. That's really what it comes down to. I was searching and searching and searching, and I'd heard things about this and decided that this was gonna be it. I was gonna have all my questions answered, and I was gonna be put on my path. Essentially, that's why I did it. So first night, I gotta say it was incredible. I had never experienced anything like that, or since, to be honest. So I was basically, I mean, it's all about like visuals. You get a lot of visions, and it's very like geometric, prismy, and colors and stuff like that. As with any psychoactive, pretty much. And I was taken to this like it was almost like a Super Mario game, but casino themed. And right now, when I think back to it, it's like nightmarish. But I know at the time it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen, and I'm interacting with this spirit, this lady, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's her. Like, because everyone says that ayahuasca is a female spirit, and she's cracking jokes. Like she's making me laugh so hard, and it's like the funniest stuff I've ever heard. And I'm like, does she know me? Because this is like right up my alley, this type of humor. And all the while I'm like going up and down these slides, and it's like a whole city. It's like Vegas for kids, basically. And I'm just like going on this roller coaster basically around, and I'm meeting all these cute little elven figures. I don't even know what they were, but they were cute. And yeah, I'm having a great time, like the best time, laughing, and just like feeling like everything's okay, and I'm taking life way too seriously. That's what it feels like. And I had an intention, because you're supposed to go in with an intention, whatever. And I just asked the question, like, oh, so, yeah, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? And she was like, oh, well, what do you like to do? I'm like, I like a lot of things. I like music. She's like, yeah, do that then. I was like, oh, is that what I'm supposed to be doing? Because I still had that hunger. I needed to know, and that's the whole reason I was there in the first place, right? And she's like, yeah, I mean, if that's what makes you happy, then do that. And I just got the impression like, you're taking life way too serious. It doesn't matter what you do, just be happy. So that's what I took away from that first night, and just so much laughter. I was so happy. And second night, I've actually written all this down somewhere, but I can't find it. Second night, it started off in that same sort of feeling, but then it was like I was on that roller coaster, and I just went down, And I just kept going down, and I was like, oh, what is this? Like, where am I? And I was in a desert, like a completely desolate desert. And, the ground was all cracked, like there was just the drought. And I was so thirsty. I was like, I would do anything for a glass of water right now. And then this bar appears, and I walk into the bar, and it's like filled with all these beasts, like all these creatures. I mean, they're like man-sized, but they're all like, they're not human, and they're also like, like when people are miserable but they're used to it. That was the vibe. And I'm like, a glass of water, please. And yeah, they didn't have water in that place. Like, would you know, in the desert there's no water. And the bartender just pours me up a large shot of ayahuasca, but it's like goopy. It's like a syrup. And I'm just like, is this all you have? Like, do you not have anything else to drink? And I'm looking around at everyone's glasses, and everyone is drinking it, and they absolutely hate it. Like, they don't have a choice. It's like maybe that was the only thing that sustained them, but they absolutely hated it. And it was strange because the first time I took the ayahuasca, it tasted nice even. It was like cough syrup. But then this second time, it all of a sudden was like, oh, wow, that's a taste for sure. Like, it just didn't taste right. And I know it was the exact same mixture. It's just that they tell you that over time it's gonna taste worse and worse. And I think that's because it's, a poison, basically. So your body's like, okay, once is fine because I don't even know what this is. But then once your body learns what it is, it's like, not again. No. So yeah, second time around, it tasted horrible. Absolutely horrible. And that's what it tasted like in my vision as well. So I'm here in this desert, and I'm just like, this is not at all like the first time. I want to get out of here. And then I'm having these I can't remember if this was the first or second time. I'm sorry, it's just all melts into one thing. But I must have had something positive happen the second time, because I did come back for a third and a fourth time. So I'm having these visions of like Egyptian hieroglyphs and lions and prisms and, geometric shapes, and I'm seeing like money, and our DNA is like spliced into money, or the other way around. I don't know. And I'm and I'm thinking like, whoa, this is so deep. It must mean something. Yeah. So I think it's the third time around now. And, or actually after that, okay, so after that time I was like, okay, it wasn't the best, but I'm sure the third time will be better, like seeing as the universe balances things out and whatnot. So I go in for a third time, and this is like day after day after day. There's no like respite in between, so it's all still in your system essentially. And the third time I end up in the same desert, so I'm like, nope. And it's just like a bad place. I just want to get out of there. And I'm the type of person who doesn't, or at the time I didn't believe in good and bad, so I couldn't allow myself to panic or anything like that. If something scary would happen, I would just be like, oh, those are my inner demons. They need to, express themselves. So I'm in the desert, and then I'm on a carousel, or like the ones that you were on as a child. I'm on a carousel, and not a carousel, but like in the parks, you'd be on like a bike, basically, that's attached to another bike, and it just goes round in a circle. And I'm on one of those, and I'm just like, okay, what's the meaning of this? This is weird, and I'm starting to feel really sick, obviously, because with ayahuasca, you more than likely will throw up. But this was like, it wasn't coming out. I was just feeling so, so, so sick. And all of a sudden, I'm on a train, and the train it's doing the same thing as that carousel. It's just moving in circles, and it's giving me the impression that this is all life. This is all of life, from the beginning of time to the end, because there's no beginning and there's no end. And that was truly, I can't say it was scary or depressing. It was just so bleak. That's what it was. Yeah, and I was just going in a circle on this train, and the worst part was knowing that there was no end to it. So nothing ever changes and nothing ever gets better, and it's just like this. It never started, so it can't ever end. And I just felt so powerless and horrible after that experience. And the next day, because all these ceremonies are taking place at night when the anacondas come. Bad idea, but anyway. My friend actually swore that she saw an anaconda when we went back, like at night, and I just didn't know what to think. She's like, it's right there in front of us. And I'm like, okay, if I die now, I die now. Because it was so bleak. It was so bleak but psychedelic at the same time. So after the third night, I actually spent the whole day feeling really strange. And like, I'll say one thing about the people who were there participating. They were obviously caught up in the whole new age thing, and like, more on the self-serving end. However, they were concerned for me, and I wasn't expecting that at all. Like, I thought everyone was just going through their own thing. But they were asking me, like, how are you? And my only response was like, who am I? Where am I? Because I had like left my body. There was no one. I didn't know what was there, but it wasn't me. And I just kept saying, like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what's here. I don't know. Like, I would look out at this beautiful scenery and I would just feel nothing. I would feel like, oh, this is for no one. Yeah. And it was a very empty feeling. And so I was struggling, like, should I really do the fourth ceremony? But then they hold it sort of over you. I mean, of course you've paid for 4, so there's that, but that wasn't really the issue for me. But they would hold it over you, saying that if you don't do 4, you haven't completed the cycle. So I mean, it really felt like walking back into a fighting arena. That's what it felt like. And I did it, so I walked there reluctantly, but once I was there, I was like, okay, I can't have any negative feelings, or it might even be worse than the previous night. And well, try as I might to feel positive about this, it did end up being worse, like a lot worse. And I'll tell you why, because the shaman who I had trusted up until that point, and I still did, like afterwards, I totally justified this in my mind. But he, all of a sudden, because I was going through it, I was being attacked by these entities, these creatures in the bar, and I was on this carousel, and I hated that carousel train thingy. It was just going round and round and round, and it was driving me nuts. And while I was going through that, I locked eyes with the shaman, just for a second. And as soon as I did, I saw all these entities, like in the room where we were, fly towards me, like fly into me. And I was like, wait, what? So anyway, I'm battling these demons, these entities, and I don't know what my body's doing. It's probably jerking around and whatever. And just hour after hour after hour is passing, and it was the longest that I'd been up, because I remember day breaking, and usually we would have fallen asleep by then, or like, you don't really fall asleep, you're like constantly in a dream state anyway, so you're just like more mellowed out. But I hadn't noticed the sun rise until that day, and once it did, I just felt this weight like lifted off, like physically lifted off of me. And I knew that those demons had left, and I don't know why they did, because nothing had changed. I was still fighting. And I had previously looked at the shaman like, why would you do that to me? But with my new age thinking, I assumed that, well, he probably knew that I was strong enough to handle that, and he knew that they would like purge me of demons I already had inside of me. I just don't know, I just came up with any type of excuse. And well, they left, and I was completely drained after that, totally exhausted. And I the day after, when everyone was leaving and sobering up, I said goodbye to the shaman. And I did notice this about him, though, and this was before we even had our first ceremony, his eyes weren't human, and I thought that was a good thing. I thought that was like like a blessing. It just meant that he was like more spiritually connected. And obviously he's done ayahuasca like, I don't know, hundreds of times. He was elderly as well, so he's done it hundreds, if not thousands of times. So but yeah, his eyes were just like platinum. Yeah, I think that's it. And when he looked at me, it was like nefarious, like he was smiling, but it was like, oh, who is that behind the eyes? But I didn't think about it, because at the end of the day, I felt this thing lifted from me. So took the boat ride back to the mainland, and went on with my life. And I would meet people on my journey, and I bought like this ayahuasca necklace, so people would ask me about it. And most people were already aware of what it was, and so they would be like, oh, like, do you recommend it? Do you have a place? And I was like, yes, absolutely, 100%, I recommend it. Like, you should definitely do it if you're called. But she will call you, complete brainwash babble, essentially, because I never told them about how horrible it felt. I just said, like, if you're ready and if you're called, it's for you. So I'm going about my life, and it was about, it was just like a significant amount of time passed, maybe three to 6 months, I can't say exactly. But all of a sudden I started having these panic attacks, and they would come like out of nowhere, like really I would be doing nothing. I would be eating, I would just be sitting, hanging around, I'd just be doing nothing in particular, and all of a sudden my body seized up, and all I could do was cry. And it was really embarrassing, because I would be traveling from place to place. Maybe you don't get a chance to like get to know everyone, you just don't have enough time. And here I am, like sitting in the common room, like just paralyzed and crying, and like they're wondering, it was very embarrassing. And I didn't have any context for it. I mean, I eventually figured out that it was a panic attack, but I couldn't say where it came from. I didn't know what had brought it on. I just couldn't put the pieces together. I was cognitively deficient for a variety of reasons that I'll get into. But I just couldn't help it, and I couldn't make it better, because once it just came over me, that was it. It was gonna do its thing until it eventually left. And it's the most horrible feeling. If anyone's ever had that, I now feel like it's definitely demonic. Like, the type of feeling that comes over you, the despair, the complete and utter despair that comes over you for no reason, out of nowhere. And I kept thinking, like, oh, it must be old trauma coming up. I'm processing something, and it just wants to get out. So I tried to meditate on it. Obviously that didn't help. I just tried whatever I could to manage it so that it wouldn't come up in like everyday situations. It was just very embarrassing and extremely uncomfortable. Like, it's such a horrible feeling. So yeah, I never tied the two together, but obviously now, looking back, clearly demonic, because it's almost similar to sleep paralysis. And when I continued my travels and I went to Australia, I didn't have any episodes for months until I finally had one, and it was so strong. And it basically, the reason it reminds me of sleep paralysis is not because I was lying down or anything, and I was completely awake, but it just came to me. I was sitting on a couch, and it just like grabbed a hold of me. I could not move, and it was almost like I could see it. So that's when I knew that, oh, this is actually an entity. It's not just, emotions. And yeah, it wouldn't let me move. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of maybe it's lessened now with time, because we found out that people have died at these retreats and stuff like that. At the retreat I was at, someone died. So hopefully it has lessened, but there's a trap in thinking that these ancient medicines or spiritual practices are somehow correct just because they're old and non-Western. Like, there's like an intrinsic bias there, sort of. But that's really just proof of how long the enemy has been active. I mean, it sounds ridiculous to say that a plant could be evil or have a nefarious motive, but it's more so that they're not for our consumption. And once we open the door, anything can come in, and we all know what's roaming out there. It's not angels. it's demons. So yeah, when I physically saw those demons come at me at the behest of the shaman who's supposed to be there to protect me, I should have known what was up. And not just with regards to ayahuasca and that whole ceremony circuit, but with regards to demons and how they operate and whatnot. And I sort of got a hint there, and that was the reason that I didn't drink alcohol when I was traveling, because I just knew it made me feel bad, and it like brought in something, not just like in me but in the group that I was with. I could I noticed that very clearly before. But as for natural medicines, ayahuasca and so on, I never made that connection that it doesn't matter. I mean, alcohol is also from the earth. It's just more processed the way that we drink it. Um, but yeah, it doesn't matter. It's still opening a portal. So yeah, I think it would be helpful for people to think of it that way, that it's opening a portal. And I almost forgot about this one guy. There was there was an Indian guy at the retreat, and he on the very first night, because he had done it several times before ayahuasca, and I believe, yeah, he done it in South America even, and he seemed very neurotic to me. Even before we went in, he was just like, there's so much chatter and so many questions, and he was giving us so much information, and I just wanted to like go in with a blank mind, whatever. He can do his thing in his corner. But as soon as it started to kick in, he was screaming. And I mean, mind you, this was like when I was having my really good experience. But he was screaming his mouth off. And I couldn't understand. Like, in my arrogance, I was just like, you need to chill. Like, I don't know what you think this is, but I'm in a casino Mario Kart heaven. Like, whatever you're doing, it's obviously on you, because I'm not having that experience, and no one else was having a viscerally horrible experience either. So I did put all the blame on him, and he kept saying, this is wrong, something's wrong, this is wrong, something's wrong, and he was like screaming. And like, in our self-centered new agey, like, karma, and it's what you reap you sow kind of mindset. I don't know how to put it, but it was very much, the blame was very much put on him, and people were angry at him, like, for ruining their trip, basically. I didn't see anyone trying to help him. I mean, I saw a lady who was supposed to like facilitate the whole thing, go up and like ask him to be quiet, but that was the extent of it. And I never took it as a warning either. I just took it as, we shouldn't be letting mentally ill people do this, basically. Like, not understanding that we're probably all somewhere on that spectrum just for going there. So, I think if you're just unlucky once, like, I've heard this about people who've done even just weed. Like, I was thinking of acid first, but people who've smoked weed for a significant amount of time in their youth, and then all of a sudden it's like maybe they find Jesus, and their system can no longer take that, so it just turns nightmarish, like that. So it all just depends. It's not so much about the substance, but more about the fact that you're opening a door. And if you have a big like light on you, then you're a huge target. So I think it would be more helpful to think about drugs and other mind-altering substances, whether that is alcohol or whatever, as just doors. Like, they open you up and make you vulnerable, and they also feed the demons that are already alive inside you. So don't do drugs, kids. It's a dicey game. That was my story.